Thanks for coming back for day 3 of Eastgate's 5-part series celebrating National Infrastructure Week. If you're just tuning in, be sure to check parts 1 and 2, linked in the description below. Just by watching this video, you're impacted by broadband infrastructure, which is today's topic. And to get us started, we have a few words from Congressman Bill Johnson.
Hi, friends. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Congressman Bill Johnson, and I represent Eastern and Southeastern Ohio. My district covers 18 counties in rural Appalachia, and one of the issues I hear about most from my constituents is how badly our region is lacking in internet access. So one of my top priorities in Congress is helping the unserved and the underserved get access to reliable, high-speed broadband internet service. It's called the urban-rural digital divide, and it's critically important that we close that gap. You know, high-speed internet access is no longer a luxury. It's essential for everyday activities in today's highly technical, information-driven digital world, both at home and at work. And while COVID-19 didn't cause the digital divide, the pandemic has certainly exposed the dire need for broadband services in rural America. In fact, more than 21 million Americans did not have access to broadband before the pandemic started, and most of them live in rural America. Many students have been without access for distance learning. Small businesses are suffering because employees can't work from home, and rural doctors and patients can't use telehealth services. So it's time that we all work together at the federal, state, and local levels to ensure we all have access to the advantages of being connected to the digital economy. As I've said many times, if we don't fix the digital divide soon, there won't be a problem to fix. Families and businesses aren't going to stay in an unconnected area. I'm encouraged by the FCC's Rural Digital Opportunity Fund program, or RDOF for short. This program is providing $20.4 billion over the next decade to support expanding high-speed broadband networks in rural America. Last fall, the FCC conducted phase 1 of the RDOF auction, and I'm very pleased that bidders in Ohio were awarded a total of $170 million to provide the best available high-speed broadband possible in unserved areas across the state. I'm currently facilitating meetings between the internet service providers tasked to deliver this expansion and the local community leaders to coordinate the efforts so that we can ensure that every last dollar is used as efficiently and effectively as possible to connect unserved and underserved families and businesses. Finally, please know this. I will continue working with my colleagues in Congress on both sides of the aisle to find solutions that will connect rural America to reliable, high-speed internet. Failure of this important mission is not an option. Rural America deserves better. Have a great day. God bless.
Thank you, Congressman Johnson, for helping us kick off day 3 of National Infrastructure Week. Today, we're talking about broadband infrastructure. And we've got Mark Ragozine here to help us talk through it. So Mark, let's jump right into it. Why is there a need for state-of-the-art broadband infrastructure, and how are current policies working to affect change?
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Long before the COVID-19 pandemic struck, the ability to have access to reliable high-speed internet and or broadband was fast becoming a priority for folks in the Eastgate region. What the COVID-19 pandemic did was place a premium on having access to millions of Americans who are now working remotely, attending school remotely, and also attempting to access their healthcare services through the growing phenomenon of telemedicine. Broadband infrastructure can no longer be thought of as a luxury and or non-essential service. It is time to start categorizing this vital component of everyday life as an essential utility that provides Americans from all walks of life the access that is needed to stay in touch with the world while being provided the same opportunities as their neighbors.
Laying out the importance of broadband infrastructure like that is really well stated. Are you able to give us some insight into some of the local issues with regards to access to high-speed internet in the Eastgate region?
Sure, Justin. In the Eastgate region specifically, what we have come to find out is that our issues with broadband connectivity are not singularly focused. These issues follow several different pathways, with each presenting a unique set of challenges to try and solve from a policy perspective. In no particular order of importance, The following are 3 areas of which have been identified as key variables in closing the broadband gap in this region. First, deficiencies in access are present in large rural portions of the region's landscape. In some cases, there is no access to high-speed internet, which according to the FCC is classified as speeds of 25 megabytes per second download and 3 megabytes per second upload. This lack of access in rural areas is commonly referred to as the last mile phenomenon, where telecoms and/or internet providers choose not to build out to areas that are not densely populated. Typically, this is due to a lack of guaranteed return on investment. In recent months, numerous pieces of legislation at the state and federal level have attempted to solve this problem. The state and federal legislation is using subsidies to entice the providers to build out to these last mile areas. We applaud these efforts and we hope to continue to see further pieces of legislation that will help to close the broadband gap in the rural areas of our region. Next, we have also identified issues with broadband bandwidth and capacity in our urban centers and commercial centers. This is an issue because it does not entice employers to locate into the area, typically costing us untold amounts of economic development, jobs, job retention, and also further private investment. Last but certainly not least, there exists a tremendous gap in adaptability and affordability when it comes to broadband internet access. What this means, and especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, is that many folks around the region cannot afford the devices that access the broadband internet, such as Chromebooks, MacBooks, iPads, and so forth. Also, there exists a tremendous gap in the affordability of the internet services. Most folks cannot afford the monthly premiums that come with that service, and we're diligently looking into programs and or other resources at our local, state, and federal level to try to offset these costs.
So now that you've done the work to identify the barriers to access to high-speed internet, how has Eastgate worked to find the right solutions to those problems?
Yeah, so beginning in late 2019, we began to piece together a team of representatives from each of the region's 3 counties. Through this effort, we felt there was a significant need to comprehensively study the region's broadband landscape. Thus, we worked towards completing an application to the Economic Development Administration for funding to complete a regional broadband feasibility study. This endeavor was a success, as in September of 2020, Eastgate was awarded a $132,500 grant from the EDA to carry out the study. Through this funding, Eastgate sought out the services of a consultant to report on the following deliverables: technology and trends review, policy analysis, service and infrastructure analysis, a site analysis, market analysis, needs assessment and outreach, project identification, and then provide us with the final comprehensive report, kind of bundling those all together.
Can you tell us a little more about the needs assessment and outreach piece of that project?
Yeah, sure. This part was complete a needs assessment for the larger scale use of broadband of area businesses, industrial manufacturing industries, and other anchor economic development organizations. Basically, the point of this was to receive and take into consideration the feedback of those businesses and then transition into surveying the residents of each of the 3 counties, understanding what their issues were, either in cost, whether or not they could actually even access the broadband, and whether or not that service was reliable. Again, as you circle back to the beginning, what we were stating, having this access was critical for those who were sent home from work, for those who were sent home from school, and also for those who were sick and or just trying to reach their normal, regular healthcare services.
You also mentioned a component of this initiative was to develop a set of initial projects. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So at the completion of this study, there should be an initial set of projects for the region to embark upon to begin the creation of a fiber optic network in this region, or to enhance the existing infrastructure that we already have in place, whether that's adding more fiber along the routes throughout the region, adding to the existing fixed wireless services, and or working directly with the telecoms. However we can enhance the coverage that we currently have, that is the ultimate goal in line with project identification. Also, too, this should lead us to the sources of funding that are going to be most appropriate for those projects, whether that's the Economic Development Administration, the Appalachian Regional Commission, and or further federal sources. We're going to pursue any outlet we can to try and improve upon the situation.
You mentioned fiber. Are you able to clarify what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So when we say fiber optic infrastructure, we mean the medium in which the broadband internet service is actually provided directly to homes and or to businesses. Also, the fiber optic infrastructure is a little more expensive, but the benefits here are that it is future proof. So when the speeds increase, the technology increases, it's not going to require as much of an update as a fixed internet service or other means of receiving that high speed internet.
Thanks for clarifying that. So you've outlined a strategy for how we address some of these issues with broadband infrastructure. So what comes next?
So what we anticipate next is the completion of the feasibility study that was commenced in November of 2020. The consultant's now in the final stages of compiling the completed comprehensive report, which is due in June. From there, Eastgate, along with our county and regional partners, we anticipate that study to serve as a pathway towards funding from a multitude of state and federal sources to carry out the implementation phase of this project, while working towards ultimately closing the broadband gaps in access and affordability for residents of the region. Until then, Eastgate will continue to work closely with our county partners, political subdivisions, and also partner organizations such as the Oak Hill Collaborative, the Western Reserve Port Authority, the Youngstown Warren Regional Chamber, educational institutions such as Eastern Gateway Community College and Youngstown State University, and also our local nonprofits.
Thank you, Mark, for helping draw attention to how critically important broadband access is to not only the residents of our region, but its role in economic development. For some final thoughts on today's topic, we'll hear from Eastgate's Executive Director, Jim Kinnick.
Thank you, Justin, and thanks to everyone that participated in our webcast today. This was the third of a 5-part series that Eastgate is running recognizing National Infrastructure Week. Mark Ragozine focused on broadband for us today. We're excited to be moving forward with our implementation of our 3-county broadband feasibility study. The results will be coming soon, and we look for other funding opportunities down the road to implement that plan. I'd like to thank Congressman Bill Johnson for his strong support and his comments he made. He has always been an advocate of broadband and making sure that we reach out to our rural areas, our urban areas, and make it more affordable. In closing, I'd like to invite everyone back for tomorrow's broadcast, where we're going to talk about a regional utility infrastructure plan. Thank you and stay well.